right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Benjamin, and great. Oh, there we go. We're back to the way it should be. Thank you, OBS. Good evening, everyone. My name is Benjamin, and welcome to back. I guess I know I haven't recorded nearly as much as I said I was. To be honest, work is kind of like I get home pretty late most days, so it's like I really need to kind of get better about that. So I'll try. Thanks, guys. Likes, comments, subscriptions if you like the content. This is gonna be my final prediction for this cycle, and boy, do we have one that's competitive. I've looked at a few different polling aggregates. I've been keeping up with polls, and paying attention, and I'll be honest, it's a little things are a little crazy. Back when Biden was still in the race, it was looking like it was going to be an absolute wipeout. And now that they've replaced him with Harris at the top of the ticket, for a while she was definitely looking like she was going to be the favorite to win. But then about the middle of this month, not this month, but middle of October, Trump started gaining ground, and now he's taken what looks to be a slim lead, at least according to most polls. Pennsylvania, Nevada, as you see here, currently polling in his favor. If we look at one aggregate, which is Nate Silver's website, he has Trump ahead by about 0.3 of a point in Pennsylvania, and Nate Silver uses a weighted average. Which weighs the more recent polls as well as quality of pollster. And also, where is it? Nevada, he has Trump ahead by 0.4, so very slim. Flipping over, and if I look at the Real Clear Politics average, the RCP average, which I don't believe weights them, they have Trump up by about 0.3 in Pennsylvania. Down, they have him up a full point in Nevada, and you've got Wisconsin barely in Kamala Harris's favor, about 0.4. Michigan barely in her favor at 0.6. North Carolina, Trump 1.5, Georgia 1.7 for Trump, and Arizona 2.7. In the Senate, which we're not going to really talk about it right now. Republicans are favored to retake the Senate, of course, flipping the West Virginia seat previously held, or I guess currently still held by Joe Manchin, and the seat held by Tester in Montana. Right now, Republicans are expected to flip those. The next best chance Republicans have is Ohio, where Moreno leads according to the RCP average 0.4, so true toss-up territory there. And yeah. So as you can see by the map, that's kind of where I've got things. I can maybe put New Hampshire in likely-dem, and obviously any state that's tilt I would otherwise have as a true toss-up. Now, is it a risk for me to put Nevada in the Trump column? It kind of is, because Nevada is kind of always a hard state to poll, and it's definitely one that is, yeah. It's kind of like Republicans, if they poll well, they don't necessarily perform well. And Democrats have always had a very good turnout machine there. It is just what it is. But what am I going to be, and what should you look for on election night? Well, the way I would put it is I would look at, say, Florida. Right now, Nate Silver's polling average has Trump ahead about 6.5%. If Trump is beating his numbers in Florida, we can reasonably assume a few things. And I'm just using Florida as an example. especially if Trump is performing well in Miami-Dade County. Uh, Obviously, the home to Miami, and it's very heavily Hispanic. Now, admittedly, the Hispanic vote in Florida tends to be a bit more Cuban in ethnicity, as well as they do have a lot of Puerto Ricanos. A Venezuelan vote is definitely a factor there. I believe also Nicaraguan. Um, so normally that tends to lean to the right anyway, lean Republican anyway, except for the Puerto Ricans. But if Trump is doing well in Florida, in particular in Miami-Dade, even better than that 6.5%, it's going to bode well for Trump in places like Texas and Arizona and Nevada, as well as New Mexico, and also to an extent Pennsylvania. But it's going to be a good omen for Trump. If it looks like he's beating his expectations in, say, Georgia, cool. If he's beating his expectations in Georgia, for example, let's say it comes in and it's looking like he's going to win by 1.5 or maybe even 2%. That's going to look very. That's going to really. That's good omens for Trump in other Sunbelt states like North Carolina, in to an extent Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico, but for different reasons. But it's mostly going to show that he's doing better in the Southeast. Ohio counts pretty quickly. If he's beating his average there, which I believe, let me flip over Ohio. Right now, average is 6.5. If he's beating that 6.5, it's a good sign for Trump in places like Iowa and Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, even Minnesota. Um, you know, on the flip side, if Harris is beating these numbers or looking like she's going to beat her averages, that's a very good sign for her camp, obviously. Place I'd look for that would be the Atlanta metro area. Look at Fayette County, for example. Fayette County, Georgia. If Harris flips that county, that would be a very big tell that she's going to have a good night. Or if it's close, but then again, it's a county that's been trending towards the Democrats for about the past decade and a half now. So we'll see if that actually really matters. Other things I'm going to be looking at, I'm going to be looking at the so-called black belt in the American South. If Trump is performing better than he did 4 years ago, that's a very big sign that some of this hoopla that's been captured in some polls is real, that Trump is actually performing better amongst black voters as a whole. But realistically, it's mostly black men, young black men, who would be voting in his favor, based off of the polling that I've seen and the analysis that I've seen. I'm also going to be looking at Milwaukee, because turnout there might be depressed early in the day, and throughout the day it's going to be rainy, but especially early in the day it's going to be really heavy rain. So that could very well depress turnout there, which, if that happens, it's bad news for Harris, obviously, because Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as well as Madison, Wisconsin, which is going to see a decent amount of rain as well, those are going to be the big Democratic vote gets in the Badger State. And it's going to really just center in Iowa and Wisconsin, the rain. Maybe a little bit into Minnesota late in the day. But it's not really going to be a factor anywhere else. You may see some depressed turnout in western Montana as well. They're going to be dealing with some snowstorms throughout the day. Same thing with the panhandle of Idaho. But those states aren't really going to be competitive. Anywhere else that's going to see any weather is not really a competitive location. Definitely going to be paying attention to Philadelphia in that area. see what the margins are there, as well as turnout. That will matter. I don't necessarily think we're going to have an official call tomorrow night, one way or another, but I think we'll have a good idea as to where things are going. I just I don't think they're going to call Pennsylvania tomorrow night, for example. Nevada probably isn't going to get called tomorrow night. Arizona probably won't be called tomorrow night. Michigan and Wisconsin, they might be, but they probably won't. It'll probably be early on Wednesday morning, if that. Um, but those are going to be what I'm really looking at in terms of trying to figure out where things are going, what the direction of the night is. So basically, pay attention to Milwaukee, pay attention to Philadelphia, pay attention to Miami, pay attention to the Atlanta Metro. And North Carolina, you might have some depressed turnout from the areas affected by Hurricane Helene, because I was just in North Carolina and they still have I-40 to the mountains shut down. So that should tell you how bad things still are. So if there is any way for y'all to help out, if you can, or if you have already and still want to do more, please do so. The people out there need it. I'm pretty sure there's still areas out there that have boil water advisories, for example. So, yeah. Virginia will probably, there's nothing we can really learn about the nationwide vote from Virginia. Maybe if it's closer than what it's polling at, cool. That would be a good sign for Trump, but it probably doesn't really have that much of a bearing. So we'll obviously see what happens tomorrow night. Any parting thoughts? Yeah. If this forecast winds up being wrong, hey, it can happen. And I won't be too surprised if this prediction is wrong. It's going to come down to those competitive states. But, one of the things I've seen in a lot of polling is that, especially over the past couple of days, everybody's publishing the same top line numbers with the very similar top line margins. So there could be a chance that the polls are hurting and there could be a decent polling error. I'm not assuming there will be, because I don't think that's a good bet one way or the other. And I think that there's a decent chance there will be a polling error against the average. How big it'll be, I don't know. But if it's within a couple of points either direction of where things were polling, I'm not counting that as a polling error. I'd say anything above a 3% polling error, 3% either direction, anything more than that, that would be a polling error. Just because of the way margin of error works. If a poll says Trump and Harris are tied at 50, that should be read as it could be anything from Trump up by 3, or I guess technically Trump up by 6, so 53-47, or the flip, where Harris is up 53-47. That's how you should read that, because that's the way you read a polling figure. So let's take Pennsylvania, where Trump is polling up 0.3. Read that as Trump could be up 3.3 or down 2.7. That's how I read that, which leads to slightly more upside for Trump, obviously. Let's see what betting markets are saying, because that could be very interesting. What are the RCP betting odds? just out of curiosity. And the betting odds, their average shows Trump at 57% to win versus Harris at 40% to win, which I don't know where that extra 3% comes in, but sure, okay. But the lowest Trump odds show Trump at 56, the highest at 59, and there's a few 59s. Highest Harris odds, 42, there's a handful of those. Lowest is 38. So that's kind of crazy. But yeah, so what that tells me is I think a lot of people who are putting money on this are pretty confident in a Trump win. Most prognosticators, most people who are in the election world think Trump is going to win. There is one notable exception, and I have a big axe to grind with that guy. Because basically, he makes the results fit his prediction model rather than the other way around, where he makes his model better each successive time, so that way he doesn't get it wrong. And he claims that he gets the outcome right every single time. Well, it's pretty easy to do when you, I don't know, make the narrative fit your model afterwards. So, yeah. And there's probably people out there who know exactly who I'm talking about. It's that Alan Lichtman or whatever guy. The guy's kind of a dumbass. But I'm not here to throw shade beyond that. So anyway, have a good evening. If you haven't already and are eligible to vote tomorrow, do anything in your power to do so. Call out of work even. And if you have already, have fun. Tell me in the comments who you voted for or not. I'm keeping my secrets this time. But no, in all seriousness, I do what I always do. So, you know. Take a guess. Anyway, take it easy, y'all. If you haven't and are eligible, go vote. See y'all next time I decide to record. Bye-bye.